And this is the proper tool for splitting the crankcases on Husqvarna. It's a crankcase splitter, and you can see how it hooks up there. It's a very handy tool. And here's the crankcase split. See the crankshaft there? That's what the tool looks like. Very handy tool. And always be aware this little O-ring goes on the crankshaft, and always make sure you replace it when you go back together. Good place to get a little bit of an air leak if you don't install this with a new one. And here's the crankshaft going into the crankcase, and you got to use these alignment tools if you're going to get it in there properly. Otherwise you can have some binding. But that's what the tool looks like, hooked up to the crankshaft. And what it does is pull that crankshaft in nice and smoothly and in the proper place. And we'll get a shot of it after it's in there. Turning the larger crescent wrench and holding the smaller one steady, you pull the crankshaft through until it is nice and seated. And you might want to check with your techs that doing the work on your chainsaws and make sure they do use alignment tools, factory tools. It'd be like getting a set of tires on your car and putting that very expensive set of tires on and not getting the tires aligned properly. You don't want that. You don't want a crankshaft that's not aligned properly on your high performance chainsaw. And here's a shot doing the left crankcase, pulling it into the proper position. And we're just about got the crankcase closed up. And here is where that O-ring goes. Make sure you always replace that. It's very important. Installing the seal, you got to use the correct tool, and that positions that seal just perfectly, so you definitely want to use those tools. And you can see after using the tool, positions it just perfectly. Very nice. Same way on the flywheel side. Just put the seal in there, and then we'll use this tool right here. You can see it's got a limiter on it. Using this tool, you can see the limiter, and it puts that seal in there just perfect. And what I've seen happen is if you don't use a tool, you can actually push that seal in a little too far, and it'll actually touch part of that bearing and heat up, and that seal will instantly go out. Or if you don't get it in far enough, you'll have a little air leak around the crank. So critical to use the correct tools. And after every rebuild, you really should do a pressure vacuum test. And this one passed both pressure and vacuum testing. Telling me I got a good seal on my crankcase, seals, gaskets, and that's the complete short block. We'll get the test covers off of it, the block offs, and get this thing back going.